Hello, this Mystico video paying tribute to the Pixar classic WALL-E, responsored by Chris over on Patreon. If you want to show your support and possibly suggest some video ideas of your own, guaranteeing a spot on the schedule, just visit my Patreon. Link is in the description. And now, on with the show. When it comes to Pixar, everyone seems to have a different favorite film. For some, The Incredibles is their best work. Others are partial to Toy Story, while you have those who love Inside Out the most. My personal favorite Pixar film is WALL-E. However, it also happens to be my favorite animated film, and my #1 favorite movie in general. It's the kind of movie that ticks off every box for me and appeals so much to my own tastes and personal preferences. It's one of those movies I can watch over and over again and find so much to unpack about it. I've often described WALL-E as what might happen if Walt Disney, Charlie Chaplin, Stanley Kubrick, and Steven Spielberg decide to collaborate on a movie together. So, probably not surprising I love this movie so much. The immediate thing often talked about with WALL-E is how ambitious it is, particularly with two central characters who communicate with simple words and bleeps. That's perfect for visual medium like animation, and Andrew Stanton thankfully avoids shortcuts in telling this story. From the first time we see WALL-E rolling about and stacking cubes in this deserted wasteland, his purpose is immediately obvious to the audience. This is one of the best openings for a movie I've seen, and how it expertly provides exposition. The use of advertising billboards to show where all the humans are is a clever device early on. WALL-E respects the audience's intelligence enough to let WALL-E's actions and Ralph Eggleston's superb production design provide the background. We understand his interests, his wishes, and how he keeps himself occupied so clearly. It's often mentioned how eyes are such an important element of animated characters and how they express themselves, and Stanton's decision to base WALL-E's eyes on binoculars was a particularly brilliant move. For metal robotic eyes, they are able to sell so much, and certainly one of WALL-E's most key assets is Ben Burtt. It was a natural choice to hire the man behind the sounds of R2-D2 to do the robot sound effects for the film, and he plays such a major role in making WALL-E immediately endearing, as well as many of the other robots in the movie. Of course, the main focus of WALL-E is the love story. The progress from Eve nearly shooting WALL-E to falling in love with him is rather believable, primarily because WALL-E does not try and force it, and Eve becomes romantically attached on her own. It's understandable from the beginning why WALL-E takes a fancy to her, partly due to his loneliness and want to have a friend beyond a cockroach, and she was designed as a perfect robot. She is like an iPhone with a personality, right down to having a Siri-like voice. The animators are able to show her evolving through the story, which is amazing for a character who does not have a mouth. They just have those light bright eyes to convey emotion, and Stanton again does not take shortcuts here. The filmmakers did not give her gimmicks like having her eyes form heart shapes. WALL-E himself mostly is uncertain about how to approach her, as his only guide to romance has been a tape of Hello Dolly. Thankfully, the scenes of WALL-E taking care of her during her hibernation or following her around come across as charming and not creepy. Primarily because WALL-E's attitude seems to be, well, maybe, we'll see, I don't want to be annoying, it's her choice. And it does end up being Eve's choice, as we see she does care about WALL-E even as she gets annoyed at him on occasion. The scene of Eve watching her camera footage is one of the most touching scenes in any film I've seen. One of the oft-discussed elements in the film is the social commentary. It does not take long to realize Stanton seems to prefer separation of government and capitalism, as humans need to leave is brought by a giant corporation eventually having control of the world. Okay, that's a little outlandish. What mega corporation is buying everything to make sure they are a recognizable brand since birth, with a CEO who has ambitions of becoming president? Only in the movies, am I right? There's certainly an environmental angle of how humans need to take care of the planet, and a plant serving as the key that brings humankind back to Earth. Yet Stanton manages to go about this without beating the audience over the head. The use of the plant works because it represents WALL-E's shifting goals. While he ends up on the axiom to help Eve, he eventually sees the necessity of the plant in helping the humans. WALL-E is a film about robots, so it's not anti-technology. However, Stanton views technology as an invention that is best used when humans work alongside it, rather than merely as a crutch. The people get lazier, more distracted over the 700 years that are on the ship because they see no reason to do anything else and are too accustomed to their current way of living. The decision to have live-action actors play the humans from 700 years ago only further shows the seriousness of what happened to them. Yet the movie never mocks the humans or treats them as a joke. Captain McCree is an immediately sympathetic character, as we see a man forced into the same agenda every day by his autopilot. There's also a lovely subplot with two people on the Axiom actually interacting face-to-face and forming a genuine connection, all because of Wall-E. It's a nice counterpart story to the central romance. What I also love about Wall-E is it's essentially an optimistic post-apocalyptic film. Wall-E does not have an angry attitude about how the world is over. He continues stacking those cubes and building his collection because he still finds joy from what Earth can bring, even if it is currently a wasteland. And it's his determination in getting the plant and bringing the Axiom back to Earth that truly drives the plot. I love how even when Otto keeps pushing the whole notion that the Earth is no longer salvageable, Captain McCree still has that drive and that positivity and that inkling of hope that this one plant can help the planet blossom again. In many ways, Otto represents the cynics and pessimists of the world, who refuse to believe goodness can come from anything, and that makes McCree and Wall-E standing up to him all the more powerful. Because, real talk here, there will be those who believe the only worthwhile thought and emotion is pessimism, and they'll try to make you fall into the same trap. Don't do it. Don't fall into that trap. If McCree had listened to Otto and the Axiom had not returned to Earth, the humans would have gotten more and more stagnant, and their health would have probably gotten worse. Cynicism and pessimism does not get you anywhere. Optimism and positivity do. And that's one of the beautiful messages conveyed by Wall-E, which actually makes it a fitting double feature with Brad Bird's Tomorrowland. Finally, I want to discuss the production itself. At this point, it's a given when somebody refers to the amazing visuals in a Pixar movie. But Wall-E really was a major breakthrough from Pixar, as it involved a lot of experimentation. The depiction of outer space is absolutely stunning, which allows for some amazing scenes. Certainly the most touching is the dancing sequence, when Wall-E and Eve fly through space in a triumphant dance. Stanton and the film's editor, Stephen Schaefer, brilliantly cut between them outside of the Axiom, McCree learning about ancient Earth society and agriculture in the captain's deck, and John and Mary, the two humans I previously mentioned, watching them from inside the ship. So the scene is not just there for show, but does progress the story for multiple characters at once. The use of colors is also excellently done, with each robot standing out, and we see the contrast between the brownish hues of the abandoned Earth and the more blue and sterile interior of the Axiom, with some bright neon for good measure. Stanton took a lot of influence from 1970s science fiction films in the cinematography. I have to mention Jeremy Lasky and Daniel Feinberg, the film's directors of photography, who employed various techniques. Not just swooping and crane shots, but there are even scenes where the camera is going in and out of focus, and they even included lens flare in certain spots. That helps in bringing you into the world that much more. There's also Thomas Newman's score, which features some of the most beautiful melodies in any Pixar film. Of course, Define Dancing is the #1 favorite, but Wall-E, Eve, and the Axiom's themes are also very inventive and fit them to a T. The decision to collaborate with Peter Gabriel on an original song, Down to Earth, also works. The song complements the central themes of the film perfectly. That it's played over the amazingly animated end credits only heightens the emotion. To conclude, Wall-E is one of the most magical and most brilliant films ever put to screen. It's a landmark in not just animated cinema, but also the science fiction genre, and that it's a sweet romance is an added cherry on top. I feel if we as a society had more folks like Wall-E, the world would indeed be a better place. Find that plant and sprinkle that positivity as much as you can. Wall-E is one of those films worth revisiting again and again, because there's so many genius nuggets all throughout this movie. Thank you to Andrew Stanton, Jim Reardon, Ben Burt, and all the talented artists and animators who helped bring this film to the screen. 700 years from now, it will still be embraced, and audiences will continue to be enchanted by it. See you next time.